Hi, I'm Ralph Preston, and here William Lowe and I are here again to do another roadmap segment. And tonight we're going to talk about your glutes. They're important to walking, and they're kind of tricky to strengthen. So first, we'll start off with William talking to us a little bit about pelvic stability and the glutes.
Okay, sure. I guess I'll I guess I'll get this roadmap going by just talking about pelvic stability and what I learned about it and how it relates to your glutes, and especially how it relates to your ability to learn how to return to walking in your recovery after stroke. So a lot of you watching this may know that I previously attended OT school, and at one point I wanted to become an occupational therapist. And although now I coach stroke survivors and help them in their recovery after stroke, um, I still remember a lot of things I learned in OT school. And in particular, one of the things which I learned, which really stood out to me, was this idea of pelvic stability when it comes to walking. And pelvic stability, what this basically is it's basically a term to describe how much control your brain has over its ability to stabilize your pelvis when you're walking, so much so that it's able to distribute weight equally across both legs so that you're able to walk in a very balanced manner. And quite often in recovery after stroke, you might have heard terms like hip dip, which I believe is a term which Ralph has used to describe when someone walks. And the reason why this happens is because typically in recovery after stroke, the brain follows a very stereotypical pattern of learning to rely mainly on the stronger leg or the non-affected leg to support most of the weight of the body. So if you want to think about this, how you used to walk before your stroke, a good way to think about it is before your stroke, both of your legs would actually take on 50% of your body weight or equal amounts of your body weight. And now what happens in recovery after stroke is because your brain wants to take the easy way out, your brain conditions itself to rely mainly on the stronger leg to learn how to walk. And what happens over time is that rather than you're walking being 50-50, where you've got both legs supporting equal amounts of body weight, it gradually becomes and turns into a situation where one leg is supporting your body weight a lot more compared to the other leg. And in most cases, for most stroke survivors, their non-affected leg is taking on 80% of their body weight, and their affected leg is maybe taking on 20% of their body weight. And because of this instability, or because of this imbalance in the way that weight is distributed across both legs of your body, your brain actually forgets to learn how to trust the affected leg to actually take on the weight of your body. And because it forgets how to trust the affected leg to take on that weight, this results in your in pelvic instability, or your pelvis not being able to stabilize itself as you're walking, which in turn leads to things like hip dip, as Ralph mentioned, where you might find yourself in a situation where you might feel like you're walking as if you're walking drunk, or you might feel like whenever you're walking, you're lifting up one hip extremely high just to get your other leg to go forward. Just to name a few descriptions which I've heard from uh, other stroke survivors who have told me about how they walk. And obviously, if you're a fan of walking like that for the rest of your life and compensating, then go for it. But if you're serious about returning to walking and I guess refining the way that you walk, so much so that you're able to walk with more of a rhythm and you're able to get a lot closer to how you used to walk before you had your stroke, then one of the things to address in recovery after stroke is teaching your brain how to actually learn to trust the affected leg to take on more of your body weight. And how you can do this is by strengthening up your glutes which is basically the main muscle which is used to support the weight of your body, and also stabilize your pelvis as you're distributing weight from your non-affected leg over to your affected leg as you're walking. And I know, Ralph, you mentioned earlier when we were having a discussion that you had some exercises which you did to train up your glutes or strengthen up your glutes, so much so that you felt that you were able to walk with more of a rhythm, um, and obviously progress in your walking. I think I'll just toss it back to you. Would you be able to share some of those exercises, which would be beneficial to the strength lovers watching this?
Sure. I knew there was something, a situation where the glutes didn't fire in walking and it caused walking issues. But since I was walking pretty well, I guess I didn't really investigate it until I went to a physical therapist, basically, for hip stability. And one of the first things he said is, well, it's your glute, probably your glutes. He said 99% of everybody, well, he said, no, 100% of everybody that comes in here, I'm not happy with the way their glutes fire. I said, okay, well, I guess I'll do glute exercises for the rest of my life. He said, you and me both. And he's like a weightlifter. Anyway, apparently we don't exercise our glutes or have as strong glutes as my physical therapists like to see on everybody. So I started doing some exercises that he gave me, and they basically isolate the glutes so that you're working on them mostly. And they're one of the things, well, the way he explained it to me is when your legs are straight up and down, you're going to use your quads and your hamstrings a lot. You can disengage them by pulling outward with your knees. Pull your knees outward. So one of the things he gave me was sit-to-stands to do with the theraband. It was tied, he just tied it snugly around my two knees when they were together, not tight. And that's a blue band that's pretty tough. And you pull out and you sit to stands with your arms in neutral. So you're doing it 100% with your glutes. And I got to where I could do 60 of them a day. I'd do 10 and 10, 2 sets of 10 3 times a day. And all of a sudden I noticed a couple things. I seemed to be walking taller on that hip, and I particularly noticed that my heel strike seemed to be better, and if I concentrated a little bit on my heel strike on my affected side, it kind of helped me walk taller. So when I was reading up on this earlier today, one of the things it said, one of the ways you can work your glutes when you're walking is by doing making sure you do a good heel strike and push off the toe. They were even saying you could tighten your glutes during that part of your walking, but as a stroke survivor, I don't know, I had enough trouble, juggling 5, 6, 7 things and walking already without having to remember to squeeze and release my glutes at a certain stage. But anyhow, the point is, if you can build them up that way, then if you have strong glutes, you're likely to do a better heel strike. And that was one of the things that I noticed. So all of a sudden, my heel strike seemed better, and the better and more I concentrated on it, the taller I walked. So that was one of them, sit stands with a theraband. Another one was something called fire hydrants. Basically, you lift up one leg like you're a dog peeing on a fire hydrant, and you do it with a band around your knees as well. All of these have bands around your knees where you're basically pulling out. And you do the fire hydrants both ways because, like William was saying, when you have one leg down and the other up, but you work the opposite glutes. When you have the affected leg down, you're doing weight bearing on that leg as well. So you do both sides equally. Another thing you had me do is basic bridges with a theraband pulling out. Because then you end up using your glutes more. And the last one was sidestepping. I mean, we've all done sidestepping. I've done it before. This looks to be a little more than a foot, maybe 35 centimeters. But basically the difference in this case was he told me to never let the tension off the band. So with most was time I was ever sidestepping, I'd sidestep and catch up, and you wouldn't let the band drop. You keep a teeny bit of tension on it so it didn't slide around. But basically let all the tension off. Well, this way you keep the tension on and you're actually working both legs. One when you extend to start the step in that direction, and the other when you got to keep the trailing foot from getting dragged forward, and you never take the tension off, and you do it again. So those were the 4 things that he gave me to strengthen my glutes, and I noticed tremendous difference in my walking, and it's kind of stuck for the most part. I've got my bands out to start up doing them again, and I'm just a lot of people know, but not everybody. I'm 14 years out, so I walked for a long time with various amounts of hip dip depending on what I was doing. I tried all kinds of other things, squats, core exercises. Core is important, leg strength's important, but somehow or another this the whole thing with the glutes ended up giving me better pelvic stability. So there you have it.
Yeah, there, and I 100% agree with everything Ralph mentioned there with all the exercises, and how he used those to target the glutes, and I think it just goes to show how important glutes are to teaching your brain to learn how to trust to put more weight on the affected leg, so that you're able to actually become a lot better at walking, and I guess stabilize yourself and your sense of balance when you're walking. Because like I said earlier, in recovery after stroke, your brain has a tendency to want to rely mainly on the good leg or the non-affected leg to do most of the work. But I think the way to actually get as close as possible to how you were walking before is to reverse this pattern of your brain wanting to cheat. And one of the ways to do that is to obviously strengthen up relevant muscles such as the glutes on your affected leg, so that you can teach your brain the good habits it needs to, so that you can progress towards a better walking gait. So I guess just following the theme of exercises, one of the exercises that I found in my own recovery to be really beneficial when it came to glutes was just simply changing the way that you go upstairs. And the reason why stairs are so beneficial for learning how to teach your brain how to return to walking is because if you have a stepper, or if you have stairs at home, the way you go upstairs and the way you go downstairs, it can actually teach your brain how to walk a lot better. So one thing you could do with a stepper or stairs is you could try and go upstairs with your affected leg first, and then just try and hover over the step with your non-affected leg dangling for a couple of seconds. And what this does when you're going up that one step really quickly with your affected leg and holding it for a couple of seconds, is it forces your brain to put all of its body weight onto the glutes, and it teaches your brain to trust your affected leg to support the weight of your body. And because it's a tricky situation where you're going up that step, and you also have to regain your sense of balance, which adds a additional sense of challenge, which allows your brain to actually latch onto something when it's trying to learn how to trust itself to put more weight on the affected leg, and at the same time strengthen up the glutes, which are extremely important to returning to walking. Another exercise I use is what I like to call the cup exercise. So basically what this would involve is it would involve placing a cup on the ground and standing on your affected leg while you try and tap the cup with your non-affected leg. And while you're doing this, what you might notice is it's extremely easy to actually lose your balance. And the reason being is because when you're tapping the cup, what you're doing is you're trying not to crush the cup, and you're also trying to support the weight of your body with your affected leg at the same time. Now, because it creates an awkward situation where you're trying to not crush the cup and you're trying to tap it really quickly, what this does is it gives your brain a challenge. And because your brain loves challenge, it actually allows your brain to actually learn things a lot quicker and allow that neuroplasticity to actually happen for itself, because neuroplasticity is the result of novelty or your brain being exposed to some sort of challenge in an exercise. So those are just a few exercises which I did in my own recovery, which I thought were really beneficial for the glutes. And these allowed me to get into more of a rhythm when I was walking. And like Ralph said, feel like I was standing a lot more straighter up when I was walking as well. So I think I'll just toss it back to Ralph. I was just wondering, what were your thoughts on exercises like those, Ralph? And did you do anything similar like those?
Well, the funny thing was, I knew about weight bearing. I did tons and tons of weight bearing. And so, John Wayne walking, a number of things. But I never focused much on the glutes. My PT was about a year or so ago, a different physical therapist was away on vacation. I had this guy who basically gave me an exercise similar to what you're talking about. Well, William, started on the ground, put your affected leg on the first step, stepped up, then put your unaffected leg on the second step, but you didn't touch it, you hovered. And it took me a while to get my balance. I would just lightly put my toe down, which is, it's cheating in terms of balance, but it's effective in terms of the fact that you got like 99% of your weight instead of 100 on that affected leg. I only had him 2 sessions one week, and he basically told me, he said, when you can do that, starting with, go up 1 step with the affected, hover the unaffected on the second step, then step back down. He said, when you can make it through that cycle, you won't have that. Then my other therapist came back and we went back to the exercises that she was doing with me. Anyway, I probably should have stuck with that one, but eventually I kind of accidentally, well, no, I didn't accidentally, my current PT seemed to know what the problem was. It was interesting because he said to me in the very first session, I'm not a neuro. And I said, well, I guess I had a stroke and that might be important to me. Yeah. I said, well, what happens if your method doesn't work? He said, I'll get you a neuro. I said, let's try it. So it was kind of interesting that it all came about. The orthopedic way sometimes is every bit as valid as the neurological way. I think when you combine both, then you really have something. So, anyway, you have anything else, William?
Yeah, that's right. I think what you touched upon when you mentioned how you're combining both a neurological approach and also an orthopedic approach, it does actually result in something powerful. I think on that note, what you might notice with all of these exercises, for those of you who are watching, is that they're structured in a certain way. And the reason why they're structured in a certain way is so that these exercises can trigger a response in your brain to actually want to recover. Now, with the exercise where you're stepping onto the step with your non-affected leg and you're putting 99% of the weight of your body on that leg and you're hovering your non-affected leg over the next step, what this is doing is you're putting your brain in a unpredictable situation where you're practicing an exercise under pressure, which actually forces your brain to actually adapt very quickly. And because your brain has to adapt really quickly from a neurological standpoint, this is actually really good for neuroplasticity because you're challenging, I mean, you're not just strengthening the muscle, you're also challenging other aspects of the brain, such as the cerebellum, which is basically the part of your brain which is responsible for teaching your brain how to correct its own sense of balance. And funnily enough, the cerebellum plays a big role in allowing your brain to actually learn how to coordinate itself and learn new motor skills after your recovery, after you've had your stroke. So I think when it comes to strengthening up your glutes, obviously all of the exercises we've shared in this roadmap, they would be extremely beneficial for you. It will obviously be dependent on which stage of recovery you're at. But if you do feel that you're confident with them, I think that they might provide some reasonable benefit for your situation. And I think at the end of the day, if you're serious about returning to walking, the main thing is to teach your brain to trust, to put more weight on the affected leg through exercises, through some of the exercises like we've discussed here, so that you can progress towards a more refined walking gait where you feel that you're walking with more of a rhythm and your brain has learned how to really distribute the weight equally across both legs like you did before you had your stroke.
Okay, well, a couple quick things. There's some other ways you can, if you go to the internet and you looked up things, you can build up your glutes. One of the things you can do is, if you're able to walk on a treadmill, even if you're holding on, if you walk uphill or you put your treadmill on an incline, it'll help with building up your glutes. I mentioned the heel to toe thing. When you're walking, if you concentrate on doing a good heel to toe and you can squeeze your glutes at the same time, that'll help build them up. There's some other standard things, lunges for obvious reason, because again you're shifting all of your weight as you go through a lunge. Squats, although I did hundreds of thousands of squats and didn't seem to solve the problem because I guess I was not isolating the glutes, and I guess now that they fire, that's why I'm seeing some carryover. Step ups are mentioned, whether you hover or not, just stepping up on a 6-inch aerobic step, or actually a good place to do it's on steps going into your house with railings on both sides. You can just step up one step and back down and do both feet. So those are some additional things you can do. I realized I had made videos of all 4 of the exercises that I did and posted them in my Facebook group, so maybe I can go get those links and post them under the description on this video, where you'll also find information about William and how to get in touch with him. So unless you have something else, William, we can end it here.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add one extra note.
Sure.
Yeah, so I would also encourage walking outside in hilly areas, and really take advantage of that opportunity whenever you can, because the thing with walking outside in hilly areas is, like I mentioned earlier, your brain actually learns best when you put it in those unpredictable situations. And one thing you can do to really get your walking going is to actually walk outside a lot more in hilly areas. And what this does is it actually forces your brain to work a lot harder to engage some of those muscles, like your glutes, to try to correct your sense of balance, especially when you're going up uneven terrain, such as hills, walking tracks. And what this can actually do is it can actually allow your brain to actually learn how to connect the dots a lot better when it comes to returning to walking after stroke, because this is a lot different to an environment where you're on a treadmill. I mean, a treadmill is great, but over time it can become artificial. So, you can take that approach. and you can also take the hilly approach, but they're both good. Those are both of the options which you have there. But I mean, I just want to put it out there. That's also an additional option which a stroke survivor can consider to improve their walking alongside the treadmill if they really want to have a look at what options they have available, and obviously take the one which is most relevant to their situation.
But I'd completely agree about walking outside. To me, the treadmill is, well, maybe some people can use them to get started, but once you get walking decently, it's different on a treadmill. The only time I ever use mine is in the dead of winter when it's too cold, or in the dead of summer when it's too hot to go outside. And most of the time, even if it's hot, I'll go early in the morning before it gets too hot. Yeah, because excuse me, you run into a whole lot of different situations that you have to instantly think about when you're walking outside, unless you're, go to a school and walk on a cinder track or something. Excuse me. So
Yeah, definitely. By all means, the folks watching this, obviously the exercises which we shared in this video, they will be dependent on whatever stage you are in your recovery after stroke, where you are in your walking. If you're just beginning your journey and you've just had a stroke, perhaps treadmill might be best for you. Perhaps doing some bridges might be best for you before you can explore the option of doing the other exercise we mentioned, such as doing the stairs, doing the cup tapping with your other foot. But these are your options for improving your walking after stroke and strengthening up your glutes, especially when it comes to your walking. And yeah, I guess you can review these as you like and feel which one would be beneficial for your recovery the most, and pick which one would work most in your favor. So I guess unless you have anything else to add, Ralph, just hand it over to you.
no, I'm good. So I'll see you, William, next time, along with everybody else. Next time when we take on another topic. So.
Great. Thanks, Ralph.